we were focusing on separation from the spiritual master, the importance both of the personal presence and the importance of hearing. And there were lots of questions stimulated. Most of the questions came up, many of them came up when it was time to end. So we can begin with those questions. I think most of you were there for that class. So you want to put those questions on the chat? You have them, Chaitanya Das? Okay. Okay, the questions will come. And questions will remind us. It will be an opportunity to review what we had discussed. Mam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sanjivadi Paschacha Distani Manchakapa Turubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Mangulangayate Girim Yakrapathamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam. Before I give class, I pray for the mercy of Prabhupada that I can say something. Because by his mercy, even if we can't speak, we are able to speak like great poets. And from our obeisances to the Vaishnavas. Also by your mercy, I can say something. By your desire to hear, you cause me to say something of value, to fulfill your need to advance in Krishna consciousness. So that way, I just become the instrument. And the audience pulls out of the speaker what is necessary for them to hear to advance. So we pay obeisances to the audience. We also pay obeisances to the audience because when you're a speaker, it seems like it puts you in a superior position. I am speaking, which means I must be knowing more than you or better than you. But we offer obeisances because we come on as a servant. And I may know some things you don't know. In the future, you will know many things other people don't know. Doesn't make us better, but it just gives us an opportunity to serve. We're always servants, no matter how much we know or whatever position we're in. So this is a question from Isha. An American guru is now saying that Harinam has no effect if the person in the public does not believe or has no faith. Discouraging Harinam by making a deep explanation of Sanskrit words. Wanting to do Sankirtan more for a circle of scholars. American is saying now that Harinam has no effect if the person, the public, does not believe or has no faith. Discouraging Harinam by making deep explanation more for this new way is creating doubts in the devotees and division. What is your position? I have no position, but I can tell you what I know. I can explain further the point he's making. The point he's making is that something done with knowledge has a greater effect than something done without knowledge. I can give you an example. Maybe not the best example, but what I've seen is that when we meet people at festivals, when they have an experience of devotees, when they see what Krishna consciousness is, and we follow up with them because they appear to be interested, then they tend to take more interest in it because they knew what it was in the beginning, whereas often we follow up with people we meet that they don't actually know we're devotees. They don't know what we're doing. And they had maybe some initial interest or kindness to take a book, but the follow-up was not as effective. So that's one point. The philosophical point is service done in knowledge is more effective, more powerful than service done without knowledge. So Harinam is something that Prabhupada recommended, of course, so we're not going to stop Harinam. But if we can do it in a way that can help people appreciate it more and understand it, that's better. It's more effective. So any kind of service people do, they will benefit, but more benefit will come when they know what they're doing, that they understand this is bhakti, who they are as a soul, who is Krishna, like that. So we can't say Harinam doesn't have effect. Of course it has effect. But greater effect is there where there is knowledge. So like when I do programs with new people, usually before or after the kirtan or in the middle, depending on my mood, I will explain what the Mahamantra means. And the more they understand the Mahamantra, the more I can see that they benefit. At least I can see that they're getting more in the mood, more connected to the meaning of the holy name. And so it doesn't mean we don't go out to give the holy name, but as far as speaking to scholars, I think his point was that sometimes if you have a motley crew of young devotees, mismatched socks and shoes, dirty fingernails, dhotis up to their knees, running around on a college campus, it's not going to impress scholars. So that might be something you want to consider when you're doing Harinam at Harvard with like the most intelligent students in America, maybe almost the world, and the best professors, that maybe the presentation has to be modified. I think that was his point. Not that we don't do Harinam, but there's a time and place for how it's done, where it's done, if it's done, and so forth. I think that's the logical explanation. But yes, there is benefit. No doubt there's benefit. Even there's benefit if they don't like it because they hear the name Krishna. And Prabhupada said that. But it may take another life or a few other lives of hearing the name Krishna before they substantially make progress, but still they hear it. I remember when I was in Vancouver, as a very young devotee, I was running a temple there. And one day a boy came to the temple. I think it must have been a weekday. Could have been the Sunday feast, I can't remember. And he sat down in my office and he said, I want to join. And I said, why? And he said, because I saw you on the street and you looked like you were having more fun than I was. Maybe that's a different time and era. But he saw the joy. You could see it in the face of the devotees. He saw the joy. And when you don't have joy in your life and you see other people with joy, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to want to join them, or two, you're going to hate them because they have something you want. And so this boy, he saw the joy and he said, you look like you're doing better than me. I want to be part of you. So that can happen. And many of us, many times, well, there's another point, Isha, that we can look at the programs that we do to help people come to Krishna consciousness, whether it's prasadam distribution, whether it's distribution of the holy name, or knowledge, or a program at a yoga studio, or a concert, whatever it is. There's two ways of looking at it. One is looking at it from the perspective of the benefit it has for the people that you're speaking to, but the other way is looking at it in terms of the benefit you get by speaking or by giving them Krishna consciousness. We all have this experience, but it's important to remember, or important to know in case you don't, that when Srila Prabhupada met his spiritual master, we know his spiritual master asked him to preach in English and take Krishna consciousness. The connotation was take Krishna consciousness out of India. And before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was leaving this planet, when Prabhupada knew he was going to be leaving soon, he asked him, how can I serve you? He got the same answer, you should speak in English. And then he said this very point, he said, if you do it, it will be good for you. Not only just good for the people, it will be good for you. So there's a couple ways of looking at this. So if we go out to give people Krishna consciousness, give the holy name, it puts us in a certain state of consciousness as representatives of this tradition and this knowledge. And if you're going to represent it, then you better clean your shirt off, wash your face, comb your hair. You have to look the part. You have to exemplify it, right? If you're going to teach something, then you can't teach it and not be it. That's hypocrisy. So the beauty of representing something is that you have to be it. It forces you to be it. At least it forces you to be probably in a better state of consciousness than you would be if you didn't have to share it. So that's one point. Like I often say, don't teach it if you don't live it. So it's a challenge if you want to be a teacher or a coach or a counselor, anyone giving advice, it's a challenge. I will challenge you, don't teach it if you don't live it. And so if you say, well, I want to teach self-compassion, okay, at least live it for a few weeks. Because you can read it out of a book, but you can't understand it if you don't live it. And so you won't be teaching with any realization if you don't live it. Another aspect is why it's good, why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said it's good for us, because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this concept is there, which probably you're all familiar with. Whatever you give, you get back. There's a saying, you cannot light up another's path without lighting up your own path, okay? It's dark, okay, come with me, I have a flashlight. So I'm pointing the flashlight so you can all walk with me. So what happens? My path is also lit. As I light your path, my path is lit. What this also means is that when you teach something, your realization of what you're teaching increases. So as you give knowledge, you get knowledge of what you're giving. And it's often said the best way to learn something is to teach it. Right? So if you really want to learn something, find a few people and say, would you like to learn this? Because I will teach it to you. Even find one person. And I don't know if you know this. This may sound funny to you, but it's a very powerful technique. When I was young devotee, even at the age of 20, we were being called by universities to come and speak to their classes. And I was regularly speaking at our Sunday programs. So we had maybe 50, 60 people. And I was regularly speaking to people in general that I would meet on the street. So the demand to be able to speak was quite strong. And what I used to do, especially on long drives, especially when I was alone, I would give class to my steering wheel. My steering wheel heard many classes. And you might think, that's weird. You must have been really weird when you were 20. Well, no, it was practical. Because I'd rather make all the mistakes giving class to the steering wheel before I give it to people. So I would try to clarify what it is I was trying to say, talking to the steering wheel. And once I clarified it to the steering wheel, then I could clarify it to people. And maybe you have this experience when you think you know something and realize you don't when you try to explain it. You know, you go to your science class and they explain Einstein's theory of relativity, and you're listening and you think you have it. And you come home and your parents say, what did you learn? And you try to explain it and you realize you can't. That ever happened to you? Yeah, so that's why teaching is so valuable, because you're going to have to explain it to an audience. I don't know if you ever heard a class where someone said something and you didn't understand it, and then you realized the person who said it didn't understand it either. He just read it, but he couldn't explain it because he didn't understand it. That's kind of normal, like how Donald Trump speaks. Yeah, nobody understands him. But when you have a professor or some devotee giving class and they don't understand what they're saying, you kind of think, I don't think he understands that, because I couldn't explain it in a way that I can understand it. And it doesn't seem that was such a difficult concept. Anyway, so we are blessed to be able to learn by speaking. Now, what also happens when you're speaking, or sharing Krishna consciousness, which one of the most beautiful things is when you're trying to help somebody and you're trying to explain something to them, you will often find that you explain something you've never understood before while you're explaining to them. And you're like, oh my God, that is so good. I didn't even know that before I was speaking to this person. So because, as I was saying earlier, because this person wants to know and you want to help them, Krishna from within your heart may put words in your mouth that you didn't even, put knowledge on your tongue you didn't even have, or give you realization you didn't have before you began speaking to them, because you so much want to help them and they so much want to learn. And I want to tell you something really interesting. You're going to be the recipient if you come to the self-love course, self-care course level 2. You're going to be the recipient of an amazing article which I just finished yesterday. It's called Spiritual Schizophrenia. If you feel like a spiritual schizophreniac, you will love this article. It will solve your spiritual schizophrenia, and it will blend both sides together. So the reason I wrote this article is because I had a kind of schizophrenia going on within myself, and I didn't understand it. And I thought, I'm going to write an article on this topic to help me understand my own heart and mind. And in the middle of writing it, I was just writing like just facts. This is how I think. This is how I feel. As I was advancing in Krishna consciousness, I was having these experiences, realizations, and confusion. I want this, but I'm not qualified for it. But I don't want the thing that I'm kind of naturally attracted to because it's lower, and I want the higher thing. But I always fail getting the higher thing. But I I still want it, and I run away from the practical, which is where I'm at, where I should be. Like, why am I doing that? I was trying to understand it. You know that feeling? You run after what you really want, but you're so far away from it, and you don't want to acknowledge you're so far away from it, but you always end up going back away from what you want because it's too difficult. So that was going on in my life. That was going on for like ever. At least after I became a devotee. Before, I didn't notice it. Maybe like 30 years. Yeah. It was like I couldn't get under control. Like I say, I know I'm not qualified for this, but I want it. And I can't give it up. And so I was thinking, what is wrong with me? Where's the nearest mental hospital? I have to go. I said, no, I won't go to mental hospital. I'll write an article. So that's what I did. I wrote an article about it, and I began explaining that when I was a young devotee, I desired this, but I really wasn't qualified, but I tried to get it, but I missed the mark, but I always thought I could get it again, but really I was avoiding who I was, pretending to be somebody better and like that. And as I'm writing, I'm trying to figure out what is going on. In the middle of writing, it's like, ding, the answer came. You can be both and integrate them. You don't have to be one or the other, which is kind of like, hello, every 5-year-old should know that. But unfortunately, I hadn't matured beyond 5, I guess. So yeah. So in the middle of the article, it was like, ding, lights, ding, 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 your answer, blah, blah. And so my point was, I specifically wrote the article. I didn't even write it for you guys. I wrote it for me, guys. But now you're going to get it. And I just gave it to Sat Rupa yesterday. I wasn't sure it was clear. She said it was clear. I'll discuss it in level 2 self-care, but it was really, I don't think I could have understood it if I didn't write about it or teach about it. So that's the beauty of giving. And so the point was, is you're saying like, is Harinam not beneficial for people? Let's say for the sake of discussion, it wasn't. Well, then why would we do it? Okay, let's say for the sake of discussion, maybe it's not that beneficial. Maybe there are other things more beneficial, but it's beneficial for us to do it. So that much I think everyone can agree on. It's beneficial. Now, how you do it, where you do it, how you dress, what instruments you play, that may vary from place to place, but it's beneficial for us to give people the holy name. In my trip to Australia and my trip to South America, I had many opportunities to give people the holy name. And especially it's always exciting to give it to people who've never chanted before, who have not, or maybe they've done kirtan, but not the Maha Mantra. And I always feel some special mercy when I do that. Like Krishna is very pleased that I did this, that I gave this. And my chanting becomes better when I give that name to other people. So that's important to understand. One time, devotees were complaining that they organized a program and not many people came. And Prabhupada quoted his spiritual master. He said, if no one comes, you can just speak to the 4 walls. They will listen. So that's kind of like if you don't have 4 walls, you only have the steering wheel, then you can speak to your steering wheel, or you can speak to your 3-year-old kid or whatever. Sit down, I got to give you a class. Here, I have to tell you this and that. So the idea of speaking about Krishna is it purifies the atmosphere and it purifies the speaker. And that's there in the Bhagavatam. Purifies the speaker, it purifies the listener, and it purifies the whole place. Just as speaking other things, politics, this and that, it contaminates everybody, makes everybody upset, doesn't purify them, doesn't help At least it doesn't help them spiritually. Yeah. So certainly there are many devotees who like bringing the holy name to people in general, and there's no real indication that that should stop, unless you're going to get arrested and thrown in prison the rest of your life. But I would say, and finally, in answer to your question, I would say that different ways of presenting Krishna to people will also depend on the nature of the person, the devotee who's presenting it. So I think the devotee who is making these points is a scholar, so it's natural that he understands and wants to present Krishna consciousness in a certain way, in a way that would be appreciated by scholars. And he's concerned that people take Krishna consciousness seriously. And if not presented well, some people may not understand its value, maybe minimize it, and so forth. That's only question we have. Chaitanya Dasi, thought we had oceans. No. Wow. Hare Krishna. So does anyone, before we go on, does anyone have any question about that? That wasn't even on the topic anyway. Now we're on a new topic. Does anyone have any question or comment on that? Clear, not clear, sort of? I would like to add one thing, which is, I guess, basically the last thing I said, that we're all different. So how we will see, how we will contribute to helping other people will vary according not only to our abilities, but according to our nature. Because I may have certain abilities, but I don't have a nature to engage those abilities in certain ways. So my nature will dictate how I do it, how I want to do it. I think a lot of devotees like to present kirtan on the street because they were probably party animals in university, and they like to just continue to party. So they have parties all day on the street, and you can see when they go out, they're partying like big time. So I think they naturally have that nature, extroverted party, love to go up to people, bring them in, give them the mic, get them to chant, get them to dance. So some people have that nature. They just bring people in. They're not afraid. They're not embarrassed. They'll go. There was a devotee who used to go out every day chanting, and he lived in Miami. He was a disciple of Prabhupada, and he would go out even if there was no one to go with. He would just go alone. And in Miami Beach, it was Coconut Grove, so kind of upper scale part of Miami Beach. That's where the temple is, or was, and still is. And there's a lot of nightclubs there and restaurants. And he would just go right into the restaurants. And by 8 o'clock at night on Friday, Saturday, they're all had a few, whatever they drink there, tequila or whatever. And so it was everybody was just yeah, come in, everyone in the restaurant, the bars, so some of you may think, well, I'm more of a serious scholarly type. I wouldn't really want to do that. I would be embarrassed. I would think that people would think we're crazy. But down there, they loved it. They were in a party mood. So, places, vacation spots and tourist spots and places where people are out at night, they're in a party mood, and the Sankirtan party comes, so they like it. And the more they drink, the more they chant. That's also an experience. Funny as it may sound, the more beers they've had, the more willing they are to chant with us. Not that we distribute beers on Harinam to get them to chant, but although I have thought of that, not seriously, but I used to do a festival, and it was in Texas, and Texans like to drink beer. So the festival probably started at 11 o'clock, 10, 11, maybe noon at the latest. By 4 o'clock, the beer was fully flowing in most people's brains. And that's when the crowd started getting bigger and bigger, and more people were chanting and dancing with us. So they didn't know what they were doing. I don't even know if the next day they even realized they were chanting Hare Krishna, because I don't know how drunk they were. But not every devotee is going to feel comfortable in that environment, where some devotees, they're dancing around with drunk people. And it's like, yeah, well, that's what they used to do before they were devotees. They feel right at home, Yeah, I used to go to parties and get drunk. Now all the drunk people are coming to our Sankirtan party. I feel right at home with them. Someone else may feel very uncomfortable. So everyone has a certain nature, and we can engage that nature in Krishna's service. And I think there'll always be the party animal devotees who will want to kind of spread Krishna consciousness in a wild way. The devotees preach in America. They have festivals where people are walking around naked. So, I don't know if everyone would want to go there. Yeah. Rainbow gatherings. You ever been there? Rainbow gathering? Oh, yeah. So they have to, in the Krishna booth, they have to give them clothes when they come in. It's like that. So, obviously certain devotees would not feel comfortable. But some devotees go to those festivals every year. And they always, people become devotees from those festivals. Right? Yeah. It's like inevitable. Anytime you go to one of those, it's called a rainbow gathering. Anytime you go, there's always people who will come back and become devotees. So that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means we have different nature. How to get a first class? What does that mean? How to graduate with top in your class? Is that what it means? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. The way you do that is every morning you get up at 5 o'clock, take a bath, put on tilak, chant Hare Krishna. And like me, you'll be top in your class. Yeah. Are you top in your class, Anandita? So you could do that, right? You must be. I think you are, right? She won't say no, which means yes. So yeah, and that's how I did it. Anandita, you know about Robin Sharma? Have you ever heard Robin Sharma speak? He's a very successful coach. So because he's so successful, whatever he does, he can just tell people, this is what I do, and many people will do it. So he gets up every day at 5. He chants some mantras, not Sanskrit necessarily, but he chants mantras, I'm grateful for today and so forth. And does his exercise, does his journaling, does his meditation. And because he's so successful, people will do it. So if you're successful, people will follow you. And you can say, I'm successful because this is what I do. I take ice cold showers in the middle of winter in London. That's why I'm successful. Hare Krishna. Yes. Hare Krishna. That's why Flora is successful. He takes ice cold baths. That's why she's successful. She bathes in ice cubes. I don't know how she does it. But, if you're going to tell other people to bathe in ice cubes, you better be doing it yourself, right? Sometimes it's like, yeah, I used to do that. I tell people to do what I used to do. Did you ever do that? Tell people to do what you used to do and you don't do it now? No. In the middle of it, while you're telling them, you're thinking, I probably should do that again. Yeah. Scarlett has a question or a comment.
Hare Krishna, and thank you for this wonderful class. You say that, and I believe it myself also, that when you teach something, you should yourself live after, do the same. And I believe distributing book also, it's the same. When you distribute book, you should yourself have been reading it or
Yes.
have read it before you
Yes.
do it.
Yes. Prabhupada said that.
But
Prabhupada said that.
there are so many books, and we I myself, I read a lot. I read a lot, but I don't have, I don't have enough time to read everything that I have, the book I have, but I distribute. So is it not wrong to do it this way?
Um, well, there's a conversation because Prabhupada rightly knew that his disciples weren't reading all the books they were distributing, and he was concerned about it. So I think there was one book called, it was from the second canto. They were printing, I don't know if you all know this, this was happening in 1972. We were printing chapters of the Bhagavatam, chapter by chapter, small books about like this. I don't even know if you can find them. That was 72, 73. Those would be collector's items. They were printing chapter by chapter by chapter. And one book was called The Process of Creation. And Prabhupada said, so what is this process of creation? Do you know? And the devotees, I think basically nobody knew. They were silent. And so Prabhupada said, so if you're distributing this book and they ask you what it is, what do you say? I don't read the books, I just sell them. He said,
Exactly.
yeah, he said, you can't say that. So there were several conversations in which Prabhupada sensed that there was more emphasis on selling the books than reading them. So he said, if you sell the book, but you don't know what's in the book, you're cheating. So, so it's an extension of the same thought. You're teaching something, you don't really understand it. It's a kind of cheating. Although, as we said, you come to understand it more deeply by teaching it, but at least some decent understanding should be there. So my advice would be any book that you want to distribute, make sure you have read it. So when people say, what's the book about? You don't have to say, I don't know. I just sell them. I'll tell you a story that kind of helps with this. The first time I went to Australia, I was staying in the home of some devotees. They had moved out and gave me their home. It was just like a studio. And this devotee was into music, and he had a very good microphone, better than any microphones I had at that time. And I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity to record all the verses of Bhagavad Gita in English. So every day in the morning, before or after I was chanting, I would read a chapter of the Gita and try to read it dramatically, like Arjuna said, oh my Lord. And Krishna said, you rascal, you fool. So I would read it like that, and I'd go over it and read it again and get it perfect. Every day a chapter of the Gita. And I was so inspired just reading the verses every day, going, because like, when was the last time you read the whole Gita? But this you can do in a week and a half. 2.5 weeks. Exactly. It's 18 chapters, 18 days. That's 2 weeks and 4 days. Said, wow, you could read the whole Bhagavad Gita, just the verses, almost twice a month, almost, let's say 10 times a year. You could read the Bhagavad Gita 10 times in a year. So there was a lot of Sankirtan devotees there. And I was so inspired doing this that I realized, or I remembered, this is how you get inspired to give people Prabhupada's books, because you're getting inspired by reading them. That's the secret. So I told all the Sankirtan devotees, if you want to be inspired to distribute this Bhagavad Gita, read a chapter every day, just in English. You'll get very inspired because you'll get so much from it. When you go up to people, you'll be exuding enthusiasm. This book is amazing. I read it every day. I'm getting so many realizations from it. I'm getting so much strength and insight from it. You should read it. And people will be like, okay, it sounds good. You'll be like a hurricane, right? So yes, there are many abnormal things, anomalies, when people like ourselves who are raised in a different culture come to Krishna consciousness and try to apply it. So you're just isolating one anomaly amongst many that we can isolate that are just, realities of conditioned souls trying to practice Krishna consciousness, and especially conditioned souls born in the West. These are just realities. And that's one of them. I think for some devotees, it's easier to distribute the books than read them. Not everybody likes to read. For some people, it's easier to read than sell them. But read the books you're going to sell. Some devotees got so inspired by what was in Prabhupada's books. They'd stop people and they'd open the book and they'd say, read this. This is amazing. Read this. People would read that and go, oh, that's profound. And just by reading something that they were excited about, they got the people excited. You know that story about the devotee who sold a Krishna book to an atheist? Krishna book is like Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This was at a time in the movement when Krishna books were only sold to devotees, not to people in general, because we didn't think people in general would want the books, because it's all about Krishna and his pastimes. So one devotee got an idea. I said, no, people in general will appreciate it. And so one night he went out on Sankirtan and he came back. And he had sold several Krishna books, which in those days, nobody was doing outside the temple. So it was a big thing. Nowadays, it doesn't sound like much. Those days, it was a big thing. And then we said, well, what did you say? Because we didn't know how to sell these books, so we wanted to find out. And he said, I gave him a book and I told him I'm in ecstasy. And he was so ecstatic distributing Krishna books. He was like, 10,000 watts. He was just lit up. He loved doing it. And they took a book and said, that's all he said is I'm in ecstasy. And he said they were atheists and they took the book. So he was so excited about that book. He excited other people. This book is like this book. It's amazing. You know what God looks like. You know what he does. Like it's right here. You can find out. Isn't that amazing? You ever wonder? It's like God. What's he doing? You know what God's doing right now? No, I don't. What do you want to find out? You want to find out what he's wearing? It's in this book. Like that's pretty exciting, isn't it? Like, do you have a book that describes what God looks like and what he's doing? You want to know who God's girlfriends are? It's in this book. Wow. He's got girlfriends. Yeah, lots. Okay. Are they beautiful? Yeah. More beautiful than you can imagine. So, you might go out and think, if you tell somebody that, they'll just think you're nuts. Possibly, yeah. But if you're so excited about it and you have so much realization, they'll tend to be influenced. Isn't it? Isn't that how it works? So how effective could you be selling a book you never read? What's the book about? Let's look at the table of contents and see what it's about. No, it's like, forget it. Okay. So Vrindavaneshwari says, if a devotee leading Harinam is not following regulative principles, is he not purifying people with his vibration? Oh, I don't want to say he's not, but the more pure the person leading, the more benefit, the more purified people will become. So generally, we should look at who's ever leading the kirtan. We should look at them like a person leading a prayer vigil in a church or something. The more pure they are, the more the hearts of the people they're leading will be affected. That's for sure. So generally, we would want It's not like the oldest devotee necessarily is going to be the person who chants more purely, but we definitely want people who are following, because that's a sign of purity, to be the ones leading. And if you like to lead kirtan and you want to be a kirtan leader, then you should understand that your purity is what is going to make a huge difference. I want to give you a thought that Prabhupada has given us. It's really, really beautiful and important. But first, it's time to drink water. So if you have any water, drink it right now. Otherwise, you'll dehydrate. And you'll live your life, you won't live long, or you could live longer. Mm. Do you know, if you want to live longer, the best thing you can do is to have good relationships? Do you know that? This is scientific. On average, people who have good relationships live 17 years longer than people who don't. Is that crazy? If you're married and you have a bad relationship and you go to the gym, stop going to the gym and work on your relationship because you'll be healthier. Wow. That's crazy, isn't it? If you have bad relationships with anybody, it wears your health out. This is data from like 40 years of research. Mm. So I was just meditating on this thought today because last night I was listening to a class where a lot of senior leaders were asking another senior leader about management, ideas about management. What is good management? How should we lead? And so forth. So I was thinking, okay, you set up a structure of excellent management. Things are going really well. That's good. But that can potentially be a problem because if you have a structure and the structure is expanding, then you have to ask, what are we expanding? What are we going to expand? Right? So you have this beautiful organization, thousands of people are coming. What are you giving them? If you're not giving them something pure, then what is the value of all your great organization? The purity of what you give is most important. So Prabhupada gave an example that there's a sweet shop, I think it must be in Kolkata. And this sweet shop uses the best ingredients. Everything is cooked in ghee, first class milk. I'm sure they don't skim off the cream. They use the milk whole like that. And Prabhupada said, and everything is incredibly good and it's expensive. And people line up around the block to buy sweets at that shop because it's so pure. So Prabhupada gave that example. He said, when you follow and teach Krishna consciousness in a pure way, people will come because people are looking for something pure. He said, that's the most important thing. Secondarily, the structure is important, but why have a structure that becomes a vehicle to distribute something that's not pure? That was Prabhupada's point. So if the consequence of building a structure minimizes the purity of what you're giving, then that structure is not really valuable at that point. And so I think we can relate to that in terms of churches that are very vast, but the people going to the church are not really transforming their lives or not becoming very enlightened. So big buildings or worse, big buildings, big scandals. So great, you have big buildings, but you have big scandals also. Sexual scandals, money scandals. So what's the point? So that's something to consider. Yeah. So the answer to your question about persons leading Harinam, does their purity affect their chanting? Purity affects everything. It affects our classes, it affects our association, it affects our cooking of prasadam, affects the level of our deity worship. It affects everything. So the answer is yes, it does affect it. And therefore, we should see leading kirtan as leading a prayer, like leading a prayer meeting. It's an important position. I know from teaching japa workshops that the mood that I'm in when I'm chanting, I can see it definitely has an effect on the students. And I also have more realization when I'm going deeper that I can share. So, is that all right? I think that covers it. Okay, so we have a question from Flora. Why, if I'm getting more conscious, I feel and can see more challenges? I mean, I feel like surfing, enjoying, watch life more beautiful and sustained by Krishna. In the same way, defiant, like I have to put everything I have been learning and act in it because Krishna wants me more focused and dedicated. Well, Floor, think of anything in your life which you dedicated yourself to exceeding in. You're doing really well. It required some change, right? Didn't it? And then when you make a change, it meant there are going to be some obstacles, right? You say, okay, I want to be top in my field, whatever my field is. So if I'm going to be top in my field, then I'm going to be much more confronted by obstacles and maybe other desires to not excel, to not do the things I have to do to excel because it's difficult. And there's this phenomenon of how the mind works, which is so interesting. I'm not exactly sure why the mind does this, but when you give up something, the mind wants it more than when you didn't give it up. Isn't that weird? Have you noticed that? Like, you don't even care about something that much, and then you give it up, and all of a sudden you're thinking about it. Like, I went for a year, and I didn't eat grains for like a year. And then Ekadasi would come, the day that we don't eat grains. I'd think, oh my God, it's Ekadasi today. I'm like, I haven't eaten grains in a year. Like, what am I worried about? But it's like, but every other day I could eat grains, even though I chose not to. But today I can't. So, oh no, I'm going crazy. I can't eat grains. So there's some strange phenomena that I don't know if Maya or what it is. And Prabhupada I have experience of this. And Prabhupada, it was so interesting because Prabhupada mentioned this. The nature of the mind is when you give up something, it wants it more. I don't know why. Don't ask me. Don't ask me why the mind is crazy. Don't ask why my AC isn't working either. Hold on. I'm so fired up. I need to cool off. Okay, it's gonna cool off. So so those are 2 points. As we give up something, somehow or other, like we feel like, oh no, I gave it up. You may not have even wanted it for 10 years, but when you finally give it up, it's like, oh, I can't do that anymore. And then you start thinking about it. When the challenge, Flora, when you say challenges, I understand that to mean, if I'm correct, is that these challenges are there because you're trying to go higher and they weren't there before because you were here, right? So it's like if I have a business and it's going fine, but if I decide I want this to be the number one business in America, I'm going to have lots of challenges because I have to knock it up and I have to start competing with the best companies. Whereas when I'm down here, okay, it's fine. I'm making a living. I'm okay. I don't have to distribute, in every store in America or every store in the world. But when I want to compete with Walmart or compete with some big company, then it's all of a sudden everything gets difficult. So Prabhupada said, if you want to do something first class, it's very difficult. If you want to do something second or third class, it's not. Because you can be like, whatever, it's okay. So now you're trying to actually deal with a lot of stuff maybe you never dealt with. Or as you become purified, this stuff comes up that you didn't even know was there. So that's another factor that happens. Like sometimes it looks like it's worse than it actually is because we're seeing things come up that we didn't know were there, but they were. So I said, well, I used to be, like sometimes devotees would say, well, I wasn't so disturbed by this and that before I was a devotee. But now that I'm a devotee, because I'm becoming purified, those latent needs and desires started coming up. That's the nature of purification. Or my impurities. Like, how should I say this? All right, rewind the tape. I'm going to say it again. If I'm trying to achieve a higher level of consciousness, then the things I was doing down here, all of a sudden, which I never saw to be a problem, are now a problem because to be up here, I can't do this. So now it looks like, oh, I have problems up here. I didn't have problems down here. No, these weren't problems for you because you were okay down there, right? If you want to be super clean, well, down here your house is down here your house is a mess, and whatever. Nothing's organized. And you want to get it clean and organized. Oh, this is so difficult. It's so hard. And now you're confronted with the reality that you're a disorganized person, whereas before when you were disorganized and didn't care, you never confronted the reality you were disorganized. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's one. It's not the only answer. The other thing we're doing is we're trying to develop a consciousness that has been held down for lifetimes. And the consciousness is that the world doesn't evolve around me, but it evolves around Krishna. And it's such a different way of thinking. Because, in a religious life, you could be religious and not have to think that way. And just, oh, the world still evolves around me, and I just pray to God to help me. So I'm still the center of my life and the center of my universe. And God, I bring him into the center to get his help. And when I get his help, I go, thank you. And then, God, you can go away now. And when I need you again, I'll call you. But he's never in the center unless I need him there to help me materially. But in Krishna consciousness, we get out of the center, we bring him in the center, and then we do things for him. It's a different way of thinking. It's not natural. So we're used to enjoying the things that Krishna gives us rather than making him the enjoyer of the things he gives us. So that's what we're dealing with. And you can't deal with it too quickly. But like we were saying when I was at your house, we have to see everything as Krishna. It's all his energy. And so we appreciate the beauty of everything and thank Krishna for it. And gradually, as we become purified, the desire to use everything for serving him will become stronger and stronger and stronger and more fun. I want to tell you what I did this morning. It was so much fun. This would be a good answer to your question. I went through this amazing experience this morning. Oh, it's like, and you're all going to be the recipients of it. So it started a few days ago when the devotees said, I'm doing a retreat in London. You're all invited. Well, you're invited, but there's only a few only room for a few people now, I think. But we're doing that the first weekend of July. And the devotee organizing it asked me if I would produce affirmations about Krishna's love. And I thought, well, that's a really good idea because I already had 12 affirmations. And then I thought, all my affirmation books have 20. We just came out with finished a new book, Self-Care Affirmations 20, Job Affirmations 20. So I had to write more. So it wasn't just about Krishna's love in forms of affirmation. It was also meditations about us loving Krishna in exchange. So what I did is I had this really beautiful music, and the last few days I've been recording them, reading them very dramatically. And what they're things that Prabhupada said, but put in the first person. So some of you have experienced this, where Krishna says, Prabhupada says, Krishna loves you even if you don't love him. And we change it to say, Krishna loves me even if I don't love him. Everything's in the first person. So last night about 9:30, I decided, I listened to the recordings I did, and I said, I'm going to redo them again. It needs to be more dramatic. So I got in more dramatic mode. I kind of channeled Radhanath Swami because he would be the perfect person to do this. I could do it as well as him, but I channeled him as much as I could. And then I did these affirmations. There's 20, and I just have to listen to them, or Sri Radha listen to them, make sure that I read them correctly. They're all in order and properly spaced out, spaced between each affirmation. And so I remembered that I had written some self-compassion affirmations, and I'm looking on my computer for them. I'd written them long ago. I didn't even use them in my course. They were written before the course, and I'm trying to find them because I'm thinking for the next level 2, we now have 20 Krishna's love affirmations. Let's have 20 affirmations for self-compassion. And as I was looking for them, something came up on Explorer. It said spiritual self-affirmations. And what these spiritual self-affirmations were, they were things that Prabhupada said about who we are as a soul. I'm eternal. I'm full of knowledge. I'm full of bliss. I'm part of Krishna. I am consciousness. I'm eternally a servant, like that. So this morning, I just put in on the database, all the Prabhupada's books, the soul is. And all these things were coming up that I never realized the soul is. The soul is this, we know some immutable, unchangeable, amazing, loving, et cetera, et cetera. So I have about 25 of them right now, 26. And then I stopped about 8 o'clock because I was going for a walk at 8. And so right now I have, you want me to read them to you? You want to get excited? Okay, hold on to your seat because I'm going to read this. There's 25. They're going to be combined, and they're not. No, there's 32 now. I'm going to record this. I record with this like beautiful background music. If I really get inspired, I could even make my own music. That takes time, but that would be fun. Okay. I am a particle of spirit. I am part of the Supreme Spirit. I am consciousness, Jnana Shakti, and I am conscious. I am an eternal servant of the Supreme and of all beings. I am different from my body. I reside within the heart. I am the observer and knower of my body. I am the master of the body, of my body. These are basically just straight from our books, but using it in the first person. I am higher than the senses, mind, and intelligence. I am unaffected by the changes of my body. I'm not dependent on my body, but my body is dependent on me. I am an individual person. I am unborn. I am immutable. I am invincible. I am ever existing. I am indestructible. I am eternal. I am not burned by fire, moistened by water, or withered by the wind. I am active. I am free from material attachment. I am auspicious. I am full of knowledge. I am full of pleasure, ananda. I am inconceivable. Wow. Turn to the person next to you and tell them, you are inconceivable. I am amazing. You are amazing. I am full of light. I am pure by nature. Love is my nature. I am dear to everyone. I possess divine qualities. Love of Krishna lies in my heart. Wow. So we're going to combine some. We'll get 20 out of that. So the reason I'm saying this, I was so excited because last night I did these affirmations, really beautiful, all about Krishna's love. It's really exquisite with this beautiful music. And I tried to get the voice perfect. And I had started on Thursday, and then I started on Friday, I believe. And then Yana came here and we did the affirmations in Russian. So we recorded them in Russian. And I'm thinking, who's going to do it in Spanish? I need someone with a good voice in Spanish and a good microphone. And we just got the japa affirmations in Ukrainian finished. So I'm really excited. So I went to visit my mother-in-law, and the whole time I'm visiting my mother-in-law, I was like, I can't wait to get back in the studio and, finish these affirmations, edit them, get the voice EQ'd and so forth to get it sound really good. And I'm always looking up, this microphone, that, I'm excited. I could spend a lot of money on this project, but I won't, don't worry. But my point is, I was thinking about it the whole time. And I couldn't wait to get back to it. And I couldn't get to it on Monday, I don't think. So yesterday I got to it. Edited the Russian ones, even though I don't speak Russian. But, and then I re-recorded these, and I was so excited. I came back to my wife and said, you can't imagine how beautiful this is. This is crazy. And then this morning, I discovered this old document I started working on, and then I just read to you what I've come up with, and there'll be more, and then we'll organize that into 20 affirmations, and I'll record those. But the point is, to me, it's I couldn't do this if I wasn't a devotee, because I wouldn't have anything that exciting to talk about. It's not that profound, right? So there's so much in Krishna consciousness to excite us that we can do. That's so sweet and beautiful. So it's just a matter of taking what you do and incorporating it within Krishna consciousness. Not that you have to stop what you're doing, but you incorporate it, and it becomes more exciting and more beneficial for people. I should show you this book, Flora. This devotee, Urmila, just came out with a book. It's called, I think, Seeing Krishna Everywhere. And it's everything from our books about seeing Krishna everywhere. And every 2 or 3 pages, there's a picture, a painting, and it has a verse and some, maybe Friday, I'll bring the book so you can see it. Do you know the name of that book? You've heard of it? Yeah, I'll give you the title of it. But it's kind of like something you could do, like artwork with a Bhagavad Gita verse on it. Or she kind of, I think, rewrote the verses a little bit to say it the way she wanted, but I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon. I am the ability in man. I am the strength of the strong. Everything from a spark of everything wonderful springs from a spark of my splendor. So you can have a picture of a beautiful mountain or someone lifting weights, and this is a spark of my splendor. So it's when you, there it is, Chaitanya Dasi. Finding the divine in everything. Is that the name of it? There's the link. Krishna meditations, finding the divine in all aspects of life. So you could get that book, for example, Flora. You could look through that book And then you could do the ones you like with your own art and just translate what's said into Spanish. And that would be so blissful and so absorbing. So you don't have to stop what you're doing, but it's more wonderful when you do it for Krishna. At least that's my experience. So instead of just like saying, I can't do all these beautiful things, how can I do those beautiful things in Krishna consciousness? Right? Or something, like you're going to go on vacation somewhere and you're like, okay, but we want to see the devotees when we go there, or where's the Govinda's restaurant? It's always, Krishna's always there, or what, and so on and so forth. So think like that. And then this is just my experience. Sometimes I get so excited about doing certain things in Krishna consciousness. Like I could never get that excited about doing it otherwise, So there's something to consider. And your excitement will be infectious. It will infect others. Right? Hare Krishna. Are you, whatever. One devotee, like she designed, I don't know, like devotee clothes for women. Like, she didn't want to wear a sari, so she designed clothes that kind of look like a sari, but they're not. And just, and everybody like, gopi skirts, right? There's no such thing as a gopi skirt till this devotee designed it. Now, so many women wear that instead of saris. They wear gopi skirts, right? So, whatever your talent is, whatever your ability is, why not? Hare Krishna. Anyway, does that make sense to you somewhat? I hope. Anyway, it's an answer for now. Something? Yeah. So do it. And then the last part of the question is, do things slowly and naturally and gradually. As we advance spiritually, as we become more interested in Krishna and we taste the pleasure of Krishna consciousness, then more absorption in Krishna, more detachment from other things. It's natural. You can't force it. It just happens naturally over time. So, and you'll see, like you, Flora, I will guarantee you will become detached from some things in your life that you didn't even try to become detached from. You just will. It'll just happen as you progress spiritually. It's just the way it works. And one day you'll wake up and you go, oh, I'm not even interested in this anymore. And I didn't even try not to be interested in it. It's just not. Somehow it lost its sparkle because I'm so much happier doing this in Krishna consciousness or understanding this. So that's just how it happens. One day you'll wake up enlightened and go, what happened? I didn't see it coming. And it came. Boom. Yeah. And you can only do what you can do according to your realization and desire. And that realization grows and the desire changes gradually. You can't really force it, but over time, chanting, you get lots of realization and things just evolve. We're all evolving, right? So things will evolve. And as we get older, they evolve also materially. We become more mature, we become more grounded, and different things become attractive, right? Okay, next question from Sanjay, or either Sanjay or Sanjay's wife. Which one? I'll read the question and then I'll be able to tell. Oh, I guess it's from Sanjay. Is it? Yeah. If someone is more interested in kirtans rather than reading books, how can he develop taste for reading books? This question is specifically related to me. I can somehow listen to small videos, but to reading a book is a big challenge. Yeah, I think it's you're a product of social media age. 1-minute reels have destroyed your brain. Your attention span can't go past 30 seconds, right? for 1 minute. Yeah, stop watching reels, Sanjay. It's actually sad. It's very easy. You and your wife set a time. You're going to read every day for an hour and just do it. And, your wife will tie you up to a chair and put tape on your mouth and she'll read to you. You can't say anything or move for 1 hour. And after doing that for a few weeks, you'll start to appreciate it. It's like, wow, this is really powerful. This is really helping me. I really like it. Sometimes when you want to do something that you really can't do on your own, you have to force yourself and get people to help you force yourself. And that's smart and that's good. And that's a form of self-control, is to put yourself in a situation where you're forced to do something, right? I'm addicted to my phone. Okay, get a safe, put it in the safe and give your wife the key and tell her, don't give me the key back until 9 o'clock. And if I ask you for it, just spray water in my face. Or, make me eat 10 chilies if I ask for it. So sometimes you have to force yourself, willingly put yourself in a situation where you'll be forced to do what you want to do. And that, I would say, that's a form of self-control. It's like, I can't control myself. I need someone else to help me. So I'll control myself enough to allow this person to help me. Come over to my house every day at 4 o'clock and wake me up. And if I don't get up, pour ice cubes in my face. I just want to get up no matter what. Just do it. Okay, you got up. You couldn't do it on your own, but ultimately you're the one who asked this person to help you. Yesterday the day before Monday, we were coming back and we were eating something that was really good. And my wife gave me the bag and said, don't let me have any more, even if I ask for them. Like, yeah, so that's a form of self-control. I know if I were alone, I'd eat the whole bag, but now that you're here, you can prevent me. So try that. Every day at a certain time, I'm going to read. Okay. Lavanga says, Lavanga. Sometimes it becomes a bit difficult to do spiritual things in such a controversial world. How do we adjust to these times in C? Dear Krishna. I guess that means Krishna consciousness. Well, if you read any book on success by any successful person, basic ideas that you want to be clear about what you want, and then you want to be clear about how you're going to get what you want. And they'll always tell you there are going to be 1,000,001 things that deviate you from that goal and the determination you make. And that's just how the world works. Right? So if I want to be Krishna conscious, or I should say, I should want to be, and because I want to be, then if it is important to me, and this is the main thing, it has to be important enough to you that when things get in the way, you don't let them get in the way, because things will get in the way if you let them, right? Yes? Yes or yes? I'll state that again. Things will get in the way, first sentence. Second sentence, well, comma, especially if you allow them to. Now, things will get in the way, but they don't have to get in the way because you won't allow them to. You'll just, okay, that's in the way, push that out, they're in the way. But if you allow them to, you go, oh, that's in the way, that's too much trouble to deal with. I'll just sit down. I won't go anywhere. So you just understand that's what's going to happen. And then if Krishna consciousness is valuable enough to you, you won't let it get in the way. And if it's not, you will let it get in the way. And that's how you know how valuable it is to you, by how much you let it get in the way. It's a simple question. Would you allow anything to get in the way of what is extremely important to you? The answer is obviously no, I wouldn't. Right? You know, what's your big goal in life? You want to become this or that? You're not going to allow anything to get in the way, right? Doesn't matter what it is. But if it's not that important, then you'll think, well, this is a hassle. And what I'm trying to achieve is not that important to me. It's not worth going through this hassle to achieve it. So I'm just not going to hassle, right? So when we let things get in the way of our Krishna consciousness, it means we're thinking, maybe it's not that important. Maybe these other things are more important. So that's a reflection. When I first became a devotee, I felt like this is what I've been looking for the last million lifetimes. So then my mother said, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to destroy. My father said, you're killing your mother by doing this. And I was thinking, yeah, but I cannot not do this. This is like too important. It's like, I don't think there's anything. I don't want to hurt anybody. I hurt my friends. They thought I was crazy. They'd say, I'm not letting you join the temple. If you join the temple, I'm going to pull you out. I mean, it was crazy. And I was thinking, this is too important. So whatever problems are there, I can't give into it. So that's how we go on when things are difficult. By realizing how important Krishna consciousness is and making it important in our lives. And then kind of easy. It's just not easy when it's not important. Because it's easy for other things to be important, especially things where you don't have to do much, right? Where they're not a big struggle. I mean, what could be more difficult than controlling yourself? I can't think of anything, right? I mean, like, spiritual life is all about self-control. I mean, what's more difficult than that? You have to control your mind, control your tongue, control your ears, control your eyes, control your stomach, control your genitals. Like, that's not easy, but it's beautiful if you can do it. And it leads to something amazing. Whereas if we don't, then we're just like everybody else, and it's like we're just doing what we've always done. So you have to have that mood, like, this is beautiful. I could actually be in control of my life, of my mind, of my senses. I could actually be experiencing this amazing consciousness of Krishna. I don't want to give that up for something else. Then you'll be fine. No problem. Does that make sense? Bishwa says, how important is the look, the tilak, shikadoti shadi? Well, good question. I think we should give a class on tilak. It's a very interesting topic. So if you go to India, see everyone is wearing different kinds of tilak. Like guys in a suit and tie, Gucci suit, he's got tilak. Like that's just normal, right? Especially in South India. Prime Minister of India's got his tilak. You know that what's the Hari Bhakti? What's that sadhu that's in the Indian government? What's his position? It's like high position, right? There's this man who's a like total sadhu and dressed in saffron, and he's like top in the government in India. I'm not sure his position, but it's pretty high, right? You always see him in pictures with the prime minister. So tilak is it's a common thing in India. It's what you're doing when you're putting on tilak, in case you don't know, is every place you put tilak on the 12 parts of your body, you're chanting names of Krishna. So they're pure, you're getting purified. Om Keshavaya Nama, Om Narayana. Shiraya, Shkeshana, Padvanmayana, Damodaraya, Madhusudana, Trivikamaya. You're putting Krishna's name on your body, so that's then getting purified. So tilak is important. And sometimes when you can't go out in the world with tilak, you can put it on with water. Om Keshavaya Namaha. So you've chanted the mantras, you're protected. And that clay that we put on, that is from a place where the gopis walked. So you're getting the dust of their feet on your head. But we'll do a class on tilak. It's very enlightening. The things Prabhupada said about it. You'd be surprised what he said about it. Of course, in the West, it's not a common thing, but in India, it's like so normal. It's almost abnormal not to have tilak, isn't it? Especially in South India, you'll see it because they all do puja in the morning. And so they all have tilak from their puja, right? The world has changed, but we'll talk about it. It's good to know about it. Chief Minister of UP, Yogi Adityanath. Yeah, go check him out. The Chief Minister of a state in India, and he's dressed in dhoti and chadar and tilak. He's a sadhu. Interesting, right? Yogi Adityanath. As far as yeah, if you're living as a brahmachari in a temple, then the requirement is to shave your head. I was at Mangalarti this morning in Alachua, and I have a joke about Mangalarti in Alachua. You have to be either over 60, Guyanese, or Indian, and occasionally Gurukuli, because that's the only people that come. If you're not in that bracket, like nobody's there. So one younger devotee came like, oh, they forgot to check his ID. He's under 60. How did he get in? Lots and lots of Prabhupada disciples in Alachua. And if you come to Alachua and you come to Mangalartik, you'll see lots of Prabhupada disciples. And every female disciple is in a sari with her head covered, because that's how she was trained when Prabhupada was here. So, generally women don't cover their head anymore. Every Prabhupada disciple in the temple covers her head. Isn't that interesting? Because that's a kind of a northern Indian thing. They don't do it in southern India. You can look at it in many ways. But I just thought it was interesting. I go, well, that's really interesting. They all have their head covered, all the Prabhupada disciples, not everybody else. Some, but not everyone. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. Another day and time. Yes. But I think I was meant to be a devotee, right? I have an eternally shaved head. So I went to do a radio show in Mexico, and we walked into his office just straight, and because we knew him, he said, "Can we do a radio show?" And he says, "Hold on a minute." But then 5 minutes later, he invites us in. He goes, "I hadn't seen him in a year," and he says, "Wow, it's amazing. Haven't seen you in a year, and your hair hasn't grown at all." I said, "Yes, I'm a devotee." Natural. Okay. Hare Krishna to everyone. Thank you. We'll see you on Friday. I think I'll still be here. That's the plan. And I think it's cool enough to go outside. And we're gonna go on a japa walk, so we're gonna miss you. So maybe you could play a. Wow, should I play my Krishna Loves You tape? Should we do that? Oh my God, I have to download it. I have